By the way, it is our distinct honor to be joined by our next guest today, Montreal Alouettes receiving king, Ben Cahoon. I wonder if he has that echoing in his ears when he lays down at bed. There he is. Joins us from Utah tonight. Three-time Grey Cup champion. CFL All-Star pretty much every year that he played in the league. Ben Cahoon joining us this morning. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, I'm excellent. How are you guys doing?
Very well. There's a lot of people across this country that were really excited to see your face and hear from you today with a bit of an update on your life. But first, every time I see your name, let alone say it, it's Ben Cahoon. That guy in Montreal, man, that announcer knows what he's doing. Do you still hear it when you lay down in bed at night or when you get up? Do you still hear it in your head?
No, not often enough.
Yeah.
When I go back to Montreal, though, I get it quite often. It's pretty special. Doc Moreau, I owe thanks for that.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we go any further and kind of go down memory lane, can you give us an update with what's going on in your life? Sounds like things are going great.
Yeah, things are going great. My family dynamics kind of changing quite a bit. I've got daughters that are getting older, obviously, and then almost getting married and moving out of the house. So things are getting quieter at the home front, but I've been able to come up to Canada, I think 4 or 5 times this last year. Most recently, I went to Montreal mid-December, so that was fun. I'm selling protein bars for an awesome company named G2G Protein Bar. Stands for Good to Go Protein Bars, and we launched into Canada, and that's given me a chance to come up to my home and native land a few times and try to promote these bars.
Well, let me ask you this, and Craig Smith is with us, 2-time Grey Cup champion. He's what we call our director of scouting here in the bunker. When you do go to Montreal, Ben, is that business stuff or Alouette stuff, or what would take you back to Montreal where you're still such a football legend there?
Both, either. I'll take any excuse to get back to Montreal, but this last trip was mostly business, but I was able to go out to dinner with Anthony and John Bowman, and we, jucked it up a little bit and went down memory lane and got an update on the current goings on with the Alouettes.
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing I love about this show is as we interview our guests, the viewers can chime in. So Wayne is watching in Victoria, BC. Wayne Grullo. He says, "Hi, Ben. I used to hate you when you played the Riders." And you guys were unstoppable, man. When did you realize, Ben, was it after you got out of the game that you realized how dominant you guys were, or did you realize it at the time that you were literally unstoppable for a decade as a team?
I don't think we realized it at the time, but once you get out of it, you realize that was a special run, a great group of guys, and what we did was pretty special, and it's hard to replicate that. It's a small league. You'd think that a team would be a little more dominant, but there's great parity, and what we did was pretty special.
Hey, Ben, it's Craig Smith. In the year 2000, I was on the coaching staff of the BC Lions, and we, Millie and Drum, had pretty good games in that game, 100 yards each, and I think we scored, and we were kind of relaxing on the sideline until 86 beat Central McClellan and went for a touchdown to make it a 2-point game. I had a little bit of hatred for you at that time. But, man, Ben, you were just incredible. Just such a great just love watching you, and just an amazing, amazing career. And thanks for coming up and being a huge part of the Canadian Football League.
Oh, thank you so much. It was my pleasure. That was not a fun night for us in Calgary, but congrats.
It was fun for us. We had a little champagne and stuff, but.
What's your take on the Alouettes now, Ben? Clearly you're staying close to the whole situation. I mean, they've really had their ups and downs. Seems like they're on their way up. But what's your take on the current state of the Montreal Alouettes?
Well, I sure hope that the momentum they've got, from the team and the players, that continues. There's no guarantee of that, but it seems like they've turned the ship around, and kind of, even with all the crazy ownership drama, the players pulled it together and got some good wins, and were able to do it despite a bunch of the circus that surrounded them. So that's real admirable. But obviously, they've got to get some ownership in place and a good GM. I like the fact that they held on to Eric Delorier. He's a bright kid, and he does work hard, like Craig said. I think that's a good hire for him.
Ben, when you got out of the game, you went and you did some coaching. Whereabouts did you coach? Tell us where you coached, and do you have any interest in getting back to coaching again?
When I retired, right after I retired, I went directly to my alma mater, BYU, and coached wide receivers there for 2 years. And then our offensive staff was dismantled. I got out of coaching for a few years, and then was rehired back at BYU by a new head coach. And that lasted 2 years again. And then the offensive coordinator and subsequent staff got let go about 2 years ago. So I tried to decide whether I wanted to get back into coaching. I did have some opportunities to do that. And this chance at G2G Bar came up. They said I could take Canada, and that was all I needed. Nice. It's an established company, it was 8 years old at the time and just blowing up. And when they said I could take over Canada, that gave me a chance to come up to the place that was near and dear to me and promote these bars, with my friends and family up there. And so I am not looking to get back into coaching at this point. I enjoyed it, but it's a brutal industry, and I'm not about to move my family around every 2 or 3 years and just to make a buck.
Good for you, Ben. Certainly we understand what that's all about. But by the way, Craig's wife, Kathy, is sitting on our studio couch here, and she says that you can't leave Utah. Your wife is political royalty in the state of Utah. Is that true? You should see her laughing, Kathy. She's like, why'd you say that? What's the story on Mrs. Cahoon there?
There's some truth there. We're not going anywhere. Very, very far. No, her father's been the governor for 9 years. He's not running again, so he'll end after 10 years as the governor of Utah, and he's done some great things for the state. But we love Utah. I've got lots of relatives that still live in Alberta, but Utah's been home for quite a while, and it's a great place to raise a family.
I had been in 48 states, and Utah was my last. And this was a few years ago when we drove through there. I couldn't believe how gorgeous Utah is. It is just incredible from top to bottom. It's such a beautiful place.
Yeah, it really is. You get a little bit of everything. So you get snow and mountains in the northern part, and in the southern part you get Red Rock and the Grand Canyon, basically, and hiking like nowhere else. So it's a special place.
Well, Wikipedia is a special place. It mentioned how you grew up in Cardston, Alberta. Forgive me, Ben. I mean, I was in the league calling Rough Riders games for 20 years. I knew that you were a non-import, but I never really knew the story of why you were a non-import. How did that come to be, and when did you realize that you qualified for Canadian status in the CFL?
Well, my heritage is all Canadian. My grandfather served in the Canadian Navy in World War II, and my parents both born and raised in southern Alberta. All my siblings were born in Canada. For some fluke reason, I was born in Utah when my parents were down here for like 3 months. But we were residents of Alberta, and I lived in Canada for my first 8 years. Then my family moved back to Utah. So that's the story. When I was a senior at BYU playing, that's the first time I thought, hey, I knew that the CFL had this rule for non-imports, and I wondered if I qualified. I called up. I got a contact from my head coach, and happened to be Eric Tillman. I called him up and gave him all the dates, and he got a little bit excited and told me to keep it to myself. And it was right like 2 weeks before the draft. So I hung up the phone and called every team in Canada and told them I thought I qualified as a non-import, and spoke with all the teams. some seemed more interested than others. I didn't get a lot of interest in Montreal by Montreal. I didn't think, but sure enough, they drafted me, and turned out to be pretty special career.
What a great story.
No kidding, and the rest is history. I'm sure you probably got tired at some point of telling that story, but it's probably been a while since you have told it. Would I be correct in that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm thankful for telling it though, because I felt like my whole career I felt like the media considered me kind of a fake Canadian, and I get that. I didn't go to high school in Canada, but it pissed me off because I thought that my grandfather, who served the country in the Navy in the war, I thought that wasn't respectful of him, or my 100 years of heritage in Alberta. So I feel Canadian. I'm sure grateful that I was considered a non-import for obvious reasons up there, but and I love the country of Canada, obviously.
Well, Ben, that's awesome. And unfortunately, we don't honor the military as much as the country that you reside in. Maybe we can change that one day, but we're certainly proud of you and your Canadian status. And listen, G2G bars, tell us where we can get them. If we can, all our viewers, if we can help you all, Ben, by buying them, let's do it. How do we get our hands on them?
I appreciate it. Well, in Canada, you can go to g2gbar.ca. Other than that, at that website, we have a store locator, which has, I think we're in probably 400 or 500 locations across Canada, but it's kind of sporadic. So you need to go to g2gbar.ca, and the store locator there will tell you where we're at. I think we're in 8 or 10 places in Regina, the same in Winnipeg, probably 20 or 30 in Vancouver, a ton in Calgary. So we're just growing, and it's a little slow, but we're hopeful that we can gain some more traction and get in some, talking to Sobeys and talking to some big dogs. So hopefully we can become a national brand name soon.
Well, I'm sure that you'll see a spike in sales throughout this weekend. So, Ben, this has been long overdue. Happy New Year. All the best in 2020, and I really appreciate the time here this morning.
Hey, thanks so much, guys. Great to talk to you, and Happy New Year to both of you.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.